Welcome to Brandstorm, the podcast that talks to the people behind America's brands. I'm Dan Trusinski, president of Platypus Advertising and Design.
And I'm Nancy Christopher, PR director at Platypus. Many businesses struggle finding good talent that fits their brand, but our guest today says it's all about knowing where and how to look and what to say when you find the right person. Lou Adler is the CEO and founder of the Adler Group, a performance-based hiring, consulting, and training firm, and author of the book, Hire With Your Head. Welcome to Brandstorm, Lou.
Hey, thank you, guys. Happy to be here. However, you missed the point is actually I'm author of 2 books, Hire With Your Head and The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired.
Great.
Glad you pointed that out.
No, I'm very glad too. So,
all right. So let's talk a little bit about performance-based hiring. What is it?
well, what it is, and I don't know if I can show you any graphics in a podcast, so I'll have to use 1,000 words to represent the picture. But I make the statement that if you want to hire a great person, you have to start with a great job. And a laundry list of skills, experience, and competencies is not a great job. At best, it's an ill-defined lateral transfer. And there's not one good person in the world. I don't think there's a bad person in the world who woke up on New Year's Eve and said, I got another year's of experience. Nobody thinks that way. So why would anybody post a job that focuses on stuff that doesn't matter to anybody? That's because it's a weeding out the weak process as opposed to attract the best process. So that's your strategic decision. But as far as I'm concerned, in performance-based hiring, it starts by changing your strategy. Hey, let's hire great people. How do they want to be hired? What messaging do we have to reach to them? And let's attract them in. That's number one. That's the start of performance-based hiring, the dismantling of traditional HR job descriptions. Step 2 is how do we find people who meet that criteria? I have 3 criteria I go when I look for people. This is the sourcing. Performance qualified, meaning they can do the work. I don't care how many skills and years of experience they got to do the work. That's a given. And they have what I call the achiever pattern, meaning they have a track record of always being in the top half or top quartile of their peer group, and they would see the job as a career move. So I spend a lot of time trying to find those kind of people. I don't need a lot. It's called a high-touch, high-tech process. I'm going to talk with fewer people, but I'm going to spend more time with them, but I'm going to raise the talent bar as a result. Now I've got to interview these people. Is this person competent and motivated to do the work I want done? Well, if I don't define the work I want done, how can I possibly determine if they're competent to do it or motivated to do it? And then the third piece is I got to hire them within budget. So that's the fourth piece of the performance-based hiring methodology. You'll never have enough money in the budget to hire top third, top quartile people all the time, unless you give them a career move. And I tell managers, you got to give people a 30% increase. And they said, we can't afford that. I said, it's a 30% non-monetary increase. Part of it is job stretch, meaning a bigger job. That's why you have to define the job to figure out the job stretch. Some of it's job mix, more satisfying work. Well, you got to define the work to see if the work you're offering is more satisfying. Job impact, meaning, which is the branding piece, is you got to tie that to a bigger mission. This is an important job for us. And then job growth, meaning you have to continue that stretch, impact, and satisfaction over time. You do those things, then money will become a negotiating item, not a filtering item.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I bet there's few companies that go through all of that in the hiring process.
Well, they should.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You look at, you're spending $50,000 or $75,000 or $100,000 that winds up in being $150,000 in costs with overhead, and the impact of that. You got somebody in procurement. That person's responsible for $500,000, $1 million in product they're buying. People don't think about the cost and the impact of that person in the job.
Yeah, the expense of making a mistake is huge.
Right.
Lou, in your book, Essential Guide of Hiring and Getting Hired.
Yeah, I'm glad you got that right.
Yeah, I have it in front of me now. So you tell business owners that they have to replace job descriptions with performance objectives that you want the candidate to achieve. Explain that for us.
Okay, that's what I said. You can't define job as a list of skills and experiences and competencies. You have to define it as a series of 5 or 6 performance objectives. For example, I'm working with one client in LA who's looking for a CFO. All he had was, I know I need a strategic CFO, but I said, what does that look like on the job? What would the person need to do to be a strategic CFO? After a while, we came to the conclusion, only because I pulled it out of him, this company is growing fast, but doesn't have a lot of cost controls in place. So they're just barely profitable. Well, this person's got to say, hey, we're growing at 30% a year, but we also have to increase profit margins by 5 or 10 percentage points over the course of the year. This person has to leverage the ERP system so it really provides management reporting for all functional departments. So performance objectives are outcomes. This morning in this morning's class, somebody said they needed someone who's got a real sense of responsibility. It was just for an AR receiving clerk. I said, what does that look like on the job? It says they can take a bunch of data, a bunch of billings, and ensure that they're accurate at the end of every day and they complete the work at the end of every day. That's how you convert a skill. Now, I remember one probably 3 or 4 months ago where somebody said, we have to have strong communication skills. I'm absolutely never going to compromise on that. Well, I said, what does that look like on the job? The manager says, what do you mean? I said, how do you know they have strong communication skills? Where is that used? And the guy said, well, this person's going to be presenting the monthly reports to our VP of operations, and the person's got to be able to clearly understand the variances in every production line and present it. I said, okay, so that's what it looks like. So performance objectives are outcomes. Typically, any job can be defined as a series of 5 or 6 performance objectives. Some big ones, what are a major objective, and some tasks to use to achieve that major objective. For a designer, it says, hey, you got to complete the design of some widget to be in production by next year. Well, the first 30, 60 days, I got to figure out, okay, let me look at all the possible widget designs and come up with a trade-off and figure out how we can get the best one. So performance-based job descriptions are outcome-based, 5 or 6 performance objectives that define the real work.
I'm also curious, Lou, what role does a company's brand play in the hiring process?
This is where I have an issue with branding.
Okay.
If you're a brand like Google and you have a great employer brand, then you can use a weed out the weak process. I mean, Google doesn't, they're already known to be a great company.
Right. Great place to
If
work
you're
for.
22 years old coming out, you want to work there. It doesn't matter what the job is, you'll work there. So the
Exactly.
employer brand, good for that.
Right.
But if you're a 28-year-old manager at Google and you're not progressing anymore, you don't care about the brand. You care about the work you're going to do. So that's why I call job branding is more important. So branding is important for certain jobs, in my mind, where there's a surplus of talent. If there's a surplus of talent, you got a big brand and it's high volume, yeah, that's a good thing. But if there's a scarcity of talent, and at 20, you're looking for a 3 to 5 year product manager who's a different company, there aren't a lot of those good people around. Those are difference makers. Well, make sure your advertising demonstrates that we're looking for a difference maker. But it's not the employer brand, it's the job itself. And that's where I think that people make this generic assumption is, hey, we got a great employer brand, everybody wants to work for us. Well, in a surplus model, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you hire. You got 100 great people. You narrow it down to 10 great people. Truth is, it doesn't matter which of the 10 you hire. They're all going to be good people. But when there's only 10 people in the whole universe and they're not applying to you, you better work like heck to attract them. That's where I think you need a high-touch, high-tech model as opposed to just a high-tech, weed-out-the-weak model.
You know what? I like the concept that you said about job branding. And when we were talking in our pregame here, you had a couple of examples of job descriptions that I thought were great. Can you share those with us?
You mean you didn't record that, so I got to do it over again?
Yeah, you just got to just give me a couple of those.
Okay, so I remember this one was Bose Corporation,
Yeah.
where they were looking for interns. And I was talking with the hiring manager, actually he's the VP, and they wanted real creative people. This was interns, but their interns were critical. That was their source of product managers because they would hire them one summer and then they would give them bigger jobs after they hired them after the year. But they weren't getting the good raw talent for interns. So I said, what's the core you want? He said, I want real creative marketing people. So I said, let me see your posting. Well, it was kind of boring. Let's have this, let's have that. They thought they were going to get people because of the brand. Well, I said, and I shamed them. I didn't do it. You guys got to be creative. Well, about 2 months later, the VP personally calls and says, Lou, you shamed the heck out of us. We came up with an ad that was great. The ad said, marketing interns dash prepare white papers in any color you want. And I was blown away. It was just so creative.
It is.
And the guy said, we ran it, we liked it, and we tested it just like we test all marketing. And it worked. We're starting to get the quality of people we're seeing just by changing that has been different. I have another company that was a big home builder, couldn't find cost analysts. And I didn't write the ad. I just heard about the ad. They couldn't find anybody. So they rewrote the ad because it said must have a CPA, must have 10 years experience, must be detail oriented. They changed the ad to add job branding. Your meticulous attention to detail drives our corporate profitability. So the most important trait was attention to detail. But it doesn't say must be attention to detail. They said the impact of that was it drove corporate profitability. So it spoke to the person.
Absolutely.
They're looking for me. I mean, you guys are in advertising.
Yeah.
That's what advertising is. Speak to the person's needs and offer them a solution to their needs. Why that message has not been heard in HR forever is beyond my imagination. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things you have to do. What does your audience want? If it's a technical position, what's the number one that techie wants to push the envelope, but what is pushing the envelope on this technical is to create a new user interface that impacts how people procure. Whatever it is, it's something important to the company and it ties to that job and that candidate's intrinsic motivator. That's what I call job branding.
That's awesome because it just gives the reader of the ad a sense of, I'm going to be important here. I'm going to have a sense of purpose in this position.
Well, and I like the fact too, you mentioned that we're advertisers and we do all that great stuff for our clients, but we never think to do it for ourselves. It's the last thing we do. So it's really important to hear hear that.
And there's another big reason for that. Obviously, you want to get good people at the top of the funnel to engage, but you will not have enough money in the budget. You cannot make money what they get on day one as the decision to accept a job or not. There's too much short-term thinking on the company side and the candidate side. No, the reason you're taking this job as a cost analyst, yeah, you're going to get paid a little bit more, but you're not going to get paid a lot more, but because you're going to be doing work you really want. That changes the dimension of the decision-making criteria on both sides of the desk.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit, Lou, about finding good talent. Where's the best place to look?
When I look for candidates, I can't say there's a best place. It's a best methodology of finding people.
Okay.
So right now we work with small to medium-sized businesses as part of our approach to train managers. I'll call it hands-on training. We train them in what we do, then we hold their hand to do it. So for the CFO search, which is your answer to your question, is I'm looking for, again, the three things I said earlier. Number one, I'm looking for people who are performance qualified, meaning they can do the work. The second criteria is they have the achiever pattern, meaning they're a top half of their peer group, because now I know that they'll get hired. They're rarely looking, and they would see the job as a career move. So I'm looking for people who might have the right criteria, in this case, operations, probably have a CPA, probably have some honors or awards. So that's how I look, and I do this. I generally use LinkedIn. When I look at LinkedIn as the primary source of talent, number one, it's a network of 500 million people, not a database of 500 million people. So when I first looked for people, I said, okay, what work do they need to do? Why would the person want to do this job? And who knows the person? But what I really try to do is I tend to not worry too much about posting. So I put a nice compelling posting up because I drive people to that as part of some marketing collateral. But when I look for people, I go through, okay, this is a job. It's a big company. It's growing. I'm looking for people who have an operational perspective, probably have an MBA, probably have some achiever terms. Beta Gamma Sigma is a honorary society. They're probably a member of that. So I'm starting to put those kind of words together. I look for people whose either their growth rate of their company is flattening a little bit, so they would see a faster growing company as important, and I would try to tap into it. So I'm really, again, just like anybody's doing a customer persona in marketing, I do a candidate persona. That's exactly what I do. Is I say, what's the kind of person that would find this job? How am I going to find them? Now, if I can get a referral to that person, that's even better because they'll call me back. But I'll send out I'll nurture them. I'll put a bunch of emails out. They'll be compelling. I do not list job descriptions. I tell stories. I mean, I had one job for VP HR in the middle of Michigan, and it was a story about a huge turnaround. And I said, this is the kind of job that will make a HR career changing, implementing a company that's growing. It was actually growing fast, but totally out of control. Put some HR controls in place and be part of a strategic growth pattern that you'll never find a better opportunity to gain 5 years experience in 3 years. It had a relocation involved. So I had to kind of figure out, how do I get people so excited that this was a strategic career move that overcame the fact that they needed to relocate somebody.
Especially going to the middle of Michigan, right?
Yeah, you've just offended people. So
hey, we're in Wisconsin.
Right, I'm sorry.
So.
I live in Wisconsin, so I know exactly how that feels.
It's not as bad because you actually have an airport nearby.
So let's take it the next step. So now that you've maybe found the candidate, what should you be talking to them about during the interview?
So when I call a candidate up, you're too soon. You're jumping.
I'm jumping a step.
When I call candidates up, I call a candidate up. Hey, Dan, would you be open to explore a situation which is clearly superior to what you're doing today? I engage him in a career conversation. I say up front, this is a conversation, not a job. I don't sell the job. I sell the discussion about the job. In selling parlance, it's called solution selling versus transactional selling. Another huge problem that most companies have. They think there's a surplus so they can weed out the weak and drive people to the apply button. I don't have an apply button. I put duct tape over my apply button. Let's have a chat. And it says, no, go to this door, the chat door. Let's have a conversation. They say, what's the money? I said, it doesn't matter what the money is. Let's see if it's a career move.
Right.
What's a career move? I got to give you a 30% non-monetary increase. Job stretch, job growth, job impact, and job satisfaction. That's going to take some time. Let's have a quick discussion to see if we can even get there. So then I look back. So my first question, Dan, hey, tell me about the biggest thing you've ever done. Well, if the biggest thing you've ever done is consistent with what I need done, I said, okay, let's keep on talking. But it's that kind of conversation is, hey, let's see if I can find the 30%. If I can, great. If I can't, hey, we'll stay in touch and we'll network.
Right.
But that's the focus. Is I'm thinking this is a serious career decision for the candidate, serious business decision for the company. Most companies think of it as transactional. Most candidates think about what they get on day one. I said, I don't care what you get on day one. If it's not a career move, it doesn't matter. Day one is the salary, the location, and comp. Immaterial. If I put you on a faster career trajectory, you should listen to what I have to offer. And most people do. Now, I don't necessarily talk like that to candidates. Oh, yeah, I guess I do. I'm pretty upfront, frank. but it's
Really?
honest. I mean, I tell people, hey, if it's not a career move, don't take the job. It would be stupid. But if it is a career move, I'm going to do it. And you might have to relocate to do it. And that's too bad, but you still got to hear me out. But most recruiters don't know the job. They don't know the manager. They don't know how to conduct it. I believe I'm affecting someone's life, the candidate, in a positive way. If it's not a career move, I'll talk them out of it. And I've had clients get aggravated with me because I won't lie. I said, this is deal. This is an important decision for you to make. But I've been doing this for 40 years. So
Yeah, and you're very candid. What's your success rate?
you said, and give me the metrics of the success rate.
Oh, now you're turning it
What
on
are
me.
you looking for success? I talk to 100% of the people. That's not the measure you want. Do you mean when we hire someone, the likelihood that they'll stay on the job? Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly.
that
It'd
it's
be
a
a great hire that
for
matches
both,
the brand.
for both parties.
Right.
Well, let me just say this. I'm not a full-time recruiter anymore. I still help people recruit, and we train people on how to do it. When I was a full-time recruiter and had a firm of anywhere from 4 to 10 recruiters, over the 25-year period, we maybe made 1,500 placements. One of the first firms in the world to give a 1-year guarantee. Of those 1,500 people, only 75 over 25 years had to be replaced in the first year. That's 5%.
That's
so I would
really
say it's
good.
pretty good success rate. Now,
that's
I'm not
awesome.
saying everyone was a great person, but I would say of the 95% of the people who stayed, I would say at least 50% got promoted within a year or two. And the other, I would say probably only 25% were good enough to stay in a job. Another 25% probably got bigger jobs or promoted in 3 to 4 years. So I always think that's pretty cool batting average.
Yeah, I'd say. Excellent.
No other company that's ever even can match it. So from a benchmarking standpoint, it's all about performance-based hiring. It's not rocket science. Define success as opposed to skills. Find people who'd see the job as a career move who are top performers. Interview them so you don't make stupid mistakes. You take bias out of the question. You look for people who are motivated and competent to do the work and fit with the culture, fit with the environment, fit with the hiring manager. You get those things right, you're going to hire the right people every time. But it does take some discipline. But it doesn't take any longer because I'm dealing with fewer people.
So for people that can't do this themselves or don't feel they can, I mean, they're generally hiring recruiters. And from the companies that I've talked to and HR departments I talk to, it's kind of one of the common complaints I hear is, well, I hired XYZ recruiting firm and they just send me a bunch of candidates and I still got to weed through it. Give me some advice, seeing that you were in that business at one time, of what does a company do to, what kind of questions should they ask in looking for a good recruiting firm if they do need help with this?
This might be a bit self-serving, but I totally agree. When I'm helping somebody, a friend of, not a friend, it was a client of mine from about 5 years ago where I helped him train his entire management team on how to do performance-based hiring. He's now the chairman of a private equity group. He's looking for a CEO. He asked me last summer if I could help him find the CEO. I said, I cannot do it. I got too much work to do, but I'm interviewing candidates. He went out and paid a huge fee to a major search firm, one of the top search firms in the world. They presented 20 candidates to him, and I'm interviewing them, and these are good people, but they're not the right people for a variety of reasons. He's so disappointed that this is a major search firm. He's paying $200,000 fee and he's not getting the right people. I'm talking to this other small company. He's using agencies. He says, I just see endless people and they're not any good. Sadly, the hiring manager isn't committed to hire the best. This is where I've created what I call this hand-holding model. We'll train you, but it's unfortunate I can't do it around the world. I can do it onesie, twosie. But we are now working with search firms to say, hey, there is a right way to do it. The right way is you got to start over again, and nobody wants. So it's their fault. I go into a company, all those companies that have complained. I said, let me see your job postings. There are these skills-based job postings. I said, well, you can't use that. We said, we can't change. And then they complain that the search firm, well, they're giving the search firm the wrong criteria to find people. Then even if they do it, the hiring manager doesn't want to change. So you can't blame the search firm. You got to blame the company for not knowing what they're looking for, not knowing how to define success, not knowing how to create a career move, and not knowing how to interview properly. So I don't know that I would blame the search firm. I'd blame them for defining work improperly and not letting their hiring managers, not rewarding their hiring managers for hiring great people. You can't just blame someone else and say it's there. No, it's your fault. That's what I would tell them. Now, I'm old enough to tell them that. They wouldn't. Now they'll listen to me, but they don't. Some of them pay attention. Most of them don't. So that's too bad. But that's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's tough love, but I got to say, it's good advice. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who want to get in touch with you, Lou. What is the best way to reach you?
I'm not going to tell them. If this podcast goes out to more than 4 people, I cannot take any more calls. But for those 4 people, they could send me an email. Well, they could go to performancebasedhiring.com. performance-based-hiring.com. It gives you a lot of insight of what we do. It talks about the hiring machine. We actually created, so now I give the sales pitchy, so to speak. I've taken every training thing we've ever done. We've put it into an online learning platform called the Hiring Machine, so they could start doing it themselves the way I've just described. Alternatively, they could send an email to lou@adlerconcepts.com, and I would probably get that. So I can talk to the first four after that. The fifth person now, we'll talk to them as well.
Right. Then they're on their own, right? Thanks so much, Lou. It was great having you on as a guest today.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, this has been really...
Doesn't go anywhere. It's been fun, right?
No, I really think there's a lot of great takeaways here. I love the stuff about branding the job. It's just something that I'd really never even thought of. Making that ad mean something to the individual candidate and making them feel special versus just, hey, I'm replying to a list of skill sets is right. Phenomenal. So
I think also the fact that you have to kind of reinvent the way you do things. You know,
and the way you think.
We blame it on the recruiter, but maybe we're not doing things the right way from the get-go.
So great, Lou. Thanks so much. We're going to put all the contact information and that sort of stuff in the show notes. So if you like what you've heard today, please don't forget to share, review, and subscribe to Brandstorm. This is Dan Trzynski along with Nancy Christopher at Platypus Advertising and Design, an awesome company that creates perceptions that influence choice for a variety of local, regional, and global brands on a daily basis. We hope you'll join us next week for another episode of Brandstorm.